Hello and welcome to the TCF Morning Show. It is Thursday, December 30th, and this morning I am joined by Boomy at Boomy TCF and Matt Schoolfield at schools_01 on Twitter. You can follow the main page at typical_Chicago. You can follow me on Twitter at ZLilia TCF. And sadly, we will be starting the show talking about the passing of Jeff Dickerson. He was on ESPN 1000 in Chicago. He's ESPN Chicago Bears reporter. Been a Bears reporter for a long time. Been on ESPN 1000 for a long time. Sadly, at the age of 44, passed away. And John Madden both passed away on Tuesday. John Madden, the fame of Madden, the video game, a huge NFL, maybe the biggest NFL announcer of all time, also the most winningest coach in the history of the NFL. And then we'll also be talking about the Bulls. They beat the Hawks 131-117, beating them twice in a home and away with Atlanta. They play Thursday against the Pacers at 2 o'clock on Friday. So that'll be a fun one to watch. A little bit of a afternoon game on New Year's Eve. The Bulls are 22-10. Blackhawks, they don't play until at least January 1st against the Predators. We don't know if that game will actually be played. There's been so many NHL games canceled over the last week or so. So we'll see if they actually get back to playing. We'll talk a little college basketball. We'll have a college football playoff preview. We got Georgia, Michigan, Alabama, Cincinnati. I cannot wait for that. And then Wacky Web Story, Boomys Wacky Web Story, like we always finish the show. If you want to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, type in Typical Chicago Fans. Go over to YouTube, type in Typical Chicago Fans. You'll find us on there. Subscribe to the YouTube page, podcasts, interviews, food reviews, all on there. Then wherever you get your podcasts from, just type in Typical Chicago Fans. We will be there. If it's Apple, please subscribe, rate, and review. Like I said, if it's anywhere else, just type it in Typical Chicago Fans, and you will find us on there. And shout out to ConnectRoasters.com. It's Connect Roasters. ConnectRoasters.com is where you can find all their great coffee, all their great merchandise. You got maybe a little money from Christmas now. You want to get yourself some really good coffee. Go over to ConnectRoasters.com. They got merch too. They got coffee cups. They got things to make coffee in. So go over to ConnectRoasters.com. Follow them on all social medias. We love them over there at Connect Roasters. But boys, how have we been? The holidays have gone and passed with Christmas. We got New Year's Eve on Friday, but I think most of us on the show are not really fans of New Year's Eve. I am not. I know Boomy is not. I'm thinking Maddie is not. But boys, how have we been?
Good, man. Just enjoying a little bit of time off of work. Back at it next week. Just trying to recharge the batteries and get back to it. So can't complain. I love Christmas, so it was crazy as all hell, but it was worth it. It was a good time. So can't complain here.
Maddie?
I have mixed feelings on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. I love New Year's Day for one because of the bowl game scenario. Same reason I love New Year's Eve.
I will agree with you on that.
I'm a huge fan of college football. Gambling on college football, I think, is my favorite sport to bet on. And just to sit back, mindlessly throw a little bit on a game and just watch it. It's not a lot of things better to bet on from a sports betting perspective. But like you said, the bar scene isn't obviously for me at this point in my life. I'm a little bit beyond going out on New Year's Eve. And then the last thing I did big time was I went to a concert probably at this point it was probably close to 10 years ago. Great night, but in the city, just an absolute train wreck trying to get home. Just
so expensive.
Something I never want to do again. And that kind of, it was as fun as the concert was. The whole just like process just kind of soured me on it.
Yeah, it's definitely amateur hour. I guess I don't feel too disconnected, Maddie. I mean, I completely agree at this point. Like, I'm
just not a fan. It's a night that people make things more expensive than they should be. Everyone wants to go out on that night, so all the bars are full and stuff. I'm just not a fan.
Yeah, I got a buddy who like him and I have always like traditionally gotten together on New Year's Day for some reason. Like we just either just hang out in one of our garages, throw a couple games on the TV out there on the iPad and shit, and just sit back, drink, shoot the shit. It's kind of been like a New Year's tradition for a few years, and So yeah, like there's something about that day I like, but it's nothing more than just from a football perspective.
Good relaxing day.
For
Sit on
sure.
the couch, push your ass
And you're
down for
always
8
off
hours.
work too, unless you have a
Yeah.
job that's like, service industry or something. So shout out to those people.
Absolutely.
But let's get into the topics. Like we said, first off, we're going to start with a sad subject. Jeff Dickerson, if you ever listen to Waddle and Sylvie, he's probably there. He was on there so many times. He's been a beat reporter for the Bears. He worked for ESPN Chicago with the Bears.
He kind of was in
in
radio too. Did some shows.
Yeah,
for them
he
nationally.
he worked with Sylvie Carmen. He was intern there. He was a producer for the Mac and Harry. Mac and Yurko. I don't know what.
Harry, yep.
Yeah.
And then like Loyola basketball, I believe he worked on for a while too.
He's been the reporter for them, and he's been with them through the time when they went to the Final Four, and then when they were not very good, and they had Porter Moser on today. They had a lot of people on ESPN 1000. It was awesome the way they had everyone that he's known and all the stories, and you can just tell that he was. You may not have known this until today, but he is maybe the nicest person of all time, and it just seems like anyone who ever met him loved him. He's only 44 years old, which is so sad. He had battled colon cancer.
Zach, his wife passed away like 3 years ago.
2 years ago.
It's insane.
She had a very long battle with cancer. And then he had, unfortunately, a short battle with cancer. I think it was at the beginning of this year. He was diagnosed with colon cancer. And then
left behind an 11-year-old boy. And
there's a GoFundMe out right now for his son Parker. You can find it on social media. We've retweeted it a bunch on the Typical Chicago Fans Twitter page. We'll get it out on Facebook.
$600,000 now.
Yeah, last awesome. I saw it was at 590,000.
It's awesome how that's working.
The Bears organization just donated $25,000. So
wow,
cool move by them. And
but like they said today. Oh, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say I'm sorry to cut you off, Zach. It's just one of those things. Like you just, we're all sports radio guys, and like I've been listening to sports radio in Chicago since I was in high school. That's over 20 years.
Yeah.
And Jeff Dickerson has been on that.
His intro on Waddle and Sylvie is so funny.
Yeah, and his intro on Waddle and Sylvie is great. The song that they did with him and everything for it. You look at Twitter and see all the people that comment.
It's not just Bears, Chicago people. It's NFL
people all
reporters.
Over the sport, people all over the sports media landscape. Twitter was crazy, like you said, Zach. The show they did on AM 1000 today, where it was just basically a day-long tribute to him, probably wasn't enough to get everybody's point of view or perspective about it. But you really can respect somebody when you see the impact that they leave behind and the legacy they leave behind. With that many people were impacted by him in such a really a short time because he was so young. You feel for his kid as much as anything too, and that like hits me a little bit. Couldn't imagine ever having my son have to deal with that. And you look at their eyes, you go to sleep every night and know that they're not going to see that boy's not going to see his parents ever again. He's only 11. It's bananas. It's not right, and it doesn't seem fair.
It's not fair, and like you said, with the GoFundMe, everyone hopefully they go and donate. But unfortunately, like they said today on ESPN 1000, that's not going to bring back his parents, and that's just the saddest thing of all. It just you didn't really personally know Jeff Dickerson, but you get sad thinking about it because you just think about how even just listening to the radio, you feels like. When I listen to the radio, I listen to 1,670 so much that you feels like that's your family and you get to know those people. And
you develop a personal connection, like when you listen to people for so long. You could say that about a lot of media, podcasts and radio and even television. Like you feel like you develop some sort of connection with this person. And like when you listen to the radio as much as we do, it's bound to happen when it's in your car or in your home every day. And then something terrible like this happens. And, like you guys said, it's not fair. And, it's a cruel thing that's going on. And it hits a lot of people. You can tell by the outreach that he's made his way into people's lives and has made a connection for a lot of people.
So us over here at Typical Chicago Fans, we send our condolences, our prayers over to his son Parker and the rest of his family. It's an awful situation that no one in this world deserves to go through. and it's awful.
Gonna be one of those situations for him that it's the whole true adage that the takes a village, because it sounds
Yeah.
like the kid at least fortunately has a great support system around him. Sounds like he's got, I think, 3 grandparents around him, aunts, uncles, and obviously the whole city of Chicago seems to be rallying behind the kid
Yeah.
too. So, at least, with all that hurt and that kid's probably feeling, at least he's got a good support system, and I hope that people keep that up for him, because it's got to make him feel a little bit better, hopefully.
Very true, Maddie. And also, John Madden passes away. I think he was in his late 80s.
I think 85.
It said unexpectedly. Didn't really say what was going on. He's looked pretty bad the last few times you've seen him on TV or whatever. It's sad. Much different situation. He's an old man. You hate to see it, but you know what I mean. If you look back at the times he was smoking cigarettes on the sideline,
Coaching on the sideline,
smoking
yeah.
stogies on the sideline. But if you look back at some of the clips that he had, they were hilarious. He was just funny. The one I was watching today he was talking like a golden retriever, and he goes,
Yeah.
golden retrievers have the most fun. They just have the most fun. That dog, he may not be having fun right now, but he's probably tired from having all the fun. And it just seemed like he made the broadcast a little funny, a little fun. It doesn't seem like a lot of people do that nowadays. It just seemed like he was just having fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you talk about a guy who like truly introduced, I mean, people complain about video games a lot, but I mean, a lot of us developed a deeper, because football 30 years ago was a lot different when Madden started coming out, his video game. And, you didn't have, the Sunday ticket. You didn't get to watch every game. A lot of people developed love for the sport and love for what might become their favorite team through the video game. And obviously, I remember him being on calling games and stuff, but I spent the most amount of hours listening to him playing his video game that he was on the cover of. So, but lived a very, very full life, and from what this sounds like, I mean, he took a bus everywhere. He did things the way he wanted to, and enjoyed.
Well, I think he had afraid of flying.
Yeah.
Which I get that he had a fear of flying.
Yeah.
Which I get that, but I mean, he probably had like the best bus of all time, but that's a lot of traveling.
But there was actually a story.
You see the world.
Here in our local area. He stopped at this restaurant in Princeton, Illinois, not far from us, called Benelli's back in the day. I can't remember what it's called now. But yeah, he was on his bus going from either from or to Chicago to the next place. I think it was like Kansas City or St. Louis, one of the two. And like obviously made an impact. Like people there remembered. I saw it on Facebook.
Oh, yeah. I mean, with as many people as many places that he's had to go and travel, he's probably seen so many people that
shaking a lot of hands.
You never been like, oh, that's John Madden at some gas station, because he has to travel that way. He's not taking planes.
Yeah. Talk about like living your life and doing what you want, and making the best of it. I mean, that guy epitomized it. Like you said, Zach, seemed like he was having fun all the time.
Also, I think percentage-wise, he is the best coach of all time in the NFL.
Highest winning percentage of any coach that has 100 or more wins.
Thank you, Boomy.
You got it.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to chip in too that the impact that he left from an impact, just from the coaching perspective, the video game, the franchise, the video game franchise is obviously taking on a life of its own. Speaks to different people knowing about him. My dad would remember him as a coach. I would remember him as a broadcaster, and from the video game. And probably Zach's age and down is probably more video game than anything. Probably at this point, just from like a generational perspective. Now individually, everybody has their own. But you know what I'm saying? Like people in that age group, it's like everybody has their different thought about what John Madden meant to them in football. So it's just kind of interesting and crazy to see like the legacy he leaves behind in that sport.
Yeah, he was like the face and voice of football for like damn near
in so many ways,
years.
though, too. Like
yeah,
you look
at
a lot of
different hats
stuff, and he's getting carried off on shoulders as a head coach, and then everybody knows it for the video game on down to working with Pat Summerall as one of the legendary broadcast teams in all of football.
All right, let's move into the Bulls. They beat the Hawks 131-117. They are now 22-10, playing real well after coming back from the COVID protocols and stuff like that. They play the Pacers Friday at 2 p.m., so a nice little afternoon New Year's Eve day game, so that will be fun. I think they're playing unbelievable right now. It's fun to watch. I know the Hawks have a lot of players out too, but the Bulls also don't have Lonzo Ball right now. They don't have Alex Caruso. I'm excited for the rest of this season.
They're kind of navigating those COVID protocols pretty well. I mean,
Yeah, they
Monday
used it
night
for a
in
good
Atlanta.
rest.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but Monday night in Atlanta, they go out and the big three put up, like they said on Twitter, absolute video game numbers, and it's,
Vucevic is playing so well right now.
yeah. And it got close at the end, and they were able to pull away. And that's what you got to do. You got to, put those, pieces together to win the game when it matters the most. And obviously they come out tonight and absolutely, playing gangbusters early, and it got a little tight late, but I think they put in some subs. But this is you got to keep it rolling. You got to keep gelling. You got to keep putting it together so that once the playoffs roll around, that you've faced every situation and you've got those guys healthy, and the guys that you're going to need big minutes out of in the playoffs have gotten those minutes, because of COVID protocols and everything. But it's really fun to watch, man. The Bulls are just absolute can't miss TV right now. I was very mad that you got to go to Elliptical tonight, and I had to continually turn my head and watch the Bulls game out of the corner of my eye, because it's one of those, like, I never would have cared, 2 years ago. But I had to make sure that I kept either looking at your TV or looking up at the corner, because you don't want to miss it. It's just it's finally fun, for the first time in probably 5 or 6 years to watch the Bulls every night.
It's can't miss basketball. And especially with how sports are right now, the Bears aren't very good. The Hawks, they aren't very good right now either. They haven't played in a while, but they still aren't. They aren't going to probably make the playoffs. So for the Bulls right now to be this good, it's perfect timing.
Maddie, I know you're more of an NHL guy, but are you tuning in at every Bulls game now that the Hawks aren't on?
Oh, I mean, I've always been a Bulls guy too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I grew up on.
It also helps that you have like 3 or 4 TVs.
Yeah, I got TVs everywhere, which helps. No, but it's one of those things where you see all the crap that people were talking about DeRozan beforehand, before the season started, and how bad of a contract it was, how they're
Some people said that he was the worst free agent signing of the offseason, and he may be the MVP this year.
It is so fun being able to be on the opposite side of that thing, like that kind of story one time. Like, it's so fun being on the fucking ha-ha side of it. And what that guy's done in the leadership he's bringing in this, like, he just plays off of Levine so well, dude. And it's, I don't know. It's one of those things that team has a lot of talent, and I think they've got a good mix of, inside outside offense with, Patrick Williams being down is the one thing that I think
we haven't even talked about that in like a month and a half.
I know. It's like, if that I think if he's there, he just brings a different element to that team. That the perimeter shutdown defender, that kind of X factor offensively too. That you never know what he's going to be able to provide you. If he can come back, dude, the East is theirs, I think, and to at least to compete with. There's no other team that I don't think goes as deep as them from a talent perspective.
I might be crazy. I don't see. I know the Warriors are good, but I still think that I know in those series they'll probably get beat or whatever. But I think this Bulls team against anybody I'll take right now. Yeah. I'm not saying they're gonna win every single game, I guess, but they're playing so well.
Granted, they don't have Durant, they don't have Steph Curry, they don't have that number one, like, the top 5 player in the league. They've got 5 guys right now that are playing in the top 50.
Javonte Green had 14 points tonight, his season high. Right. They got players like Javonte Green that are out there playing so well.
As a second round rookie.
Yeah.
Dude.
I love it. I love this team. I love this team. This team is exciting to watch, and they love to watch each other play well.
You got a guy like Kobe White who would start for a lot of teams in the NBA.
Yeah.
Like, just generally speaking, he'd start for a lot of teams. And he's not even getting that many minutes really when it's all said and done. It's a well-built team, and I'm really interested to see where they could go this year.
They had 7 guys in double figures tonight.
Yeah,
I mean,
the depth can kill you. I don't care what level of sport it is. If you have depth everywhere, you can suffocate teams to death.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm excited to see how the Bulls play the rest of the
Jesus, Boots
season.
had 20 boards. I didn't even notice that. Holy
I love
cow.
People bitch about his scoring. Yeah, there's one ball.
Well,
So,
he's been scoring a lot
Well,
more in the last few games. He's been playing really well.
Totally agree with you. I just mean like
No, I know. At the beginning of the season,
he's
that
not
was
going
the
to be what he
topic.
was in Orlando from an offensive
Yeah, because they also had no
But
one
it
else
takes
to put the
time.
ball
It
in
takes
the
time.
Right. Well, he didn't have this talent in Orlando. He had to do that. You know?
He's an all-star. He's an all-star. He knows how to play basketball. I'm excited to see
He's going to be a fucking all-star too, and it just shocks me here in the next year or two is Lonzo. That guy's going to be good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to get him back. Can't wait for that.
Yeah.
Like I said, the Bulls play the Pacers Friday at 2 p.m. So make sure you're watching a little afternoon basketball on Friday. But the Blackhawks, not much to really say about them. They don't play until at least January 1st. Yeah, they haven't played. Not very good. They don't.
Also haven't lost.
That's Saturday, right? They play New Year's Day against the Predators.
We'll
Maybe
see if that actually happens.
There's
a lot of question if that game's going to be played.
I think their last 5 or 6 games have been canceled.
Yeah.
Which I'm not complaining about.
It's
Boomy, you got a little college basketball update for us.
Yeah, and it's kind of like hockey, man. We're losing games. I mean, not as to the level, but I mean, a lot of it, especially like this is the time, like some conferences have started conference play or just started to dabble in it, and some haven't even started yet, but it's coming here soon. And so this is like the time of the year where like,
Boomy,
they'll pick up another.
But did I see a game got moved up? I think it was today. Mississippi State had a game that got moved up because I don't know if it was what like protocol or I don't have no idea. But it got moved up for some reason. Do you see a lot of these games like maybe playing against teams that you had no idea you were going to play against, stuff like that? Is that going to be going on a lot more?
It's starting to get into that where coaches are looking for.
If the team they play can't play, they'll just be like, we'll play anybody.
Yeah, show up. I mean, and I'm also seeing it a lot on Twitter and like the Division II, Division III world. I mean, it's a lot of coaches saying, hey, we lost this game on January 1st. We'll travel, whatever. We'll come to you. You can come to us, whatever. Unfortunately, and it is kind of, it stinks that it's happening, but in the same breath, it's like you see how, how bad these guys want to get stuff in. And, it's the work they're willing to go through to pick up a game for their team so they're not off for like 15, 16 days. But, things are about to heat up and hopefully, all the COVID stuff gets figured out because there's some really, really good conference games coming up here soon. And it's kind of that time of the year where, you start to look at the teams, near the, 20 to 25 range, like, okay, are you really a contender this year? Especially a team like Villanova is ranked 22nd right now. They're 8-4, and everybody talks, you never count Villanova out, but, they've had a bad year. They have not played up to expectation. And now that you have conference season starting, like now is the time to put up or shut up because you got a gauntlet to go through the Big East. A team like Wisconsin, 9-2, same thing, like not looking great, but still have, an opportunity to go through the Big Ten and really prove that you should be a top, 3 or 4 seed. But honest, the only games against ranked teams lately have been the SEC who have started conference play. A lot of ranked teams going to thin themselves out here as we get into conference play. But man, honestly, it's just there's like the 27th, there was 2 games. That's 2 days after Christmas. Normally there's quite a few games there. Yesterday there was maybe a dozen. Today we're looking at maybe 20. So it's kind of one of those, a lot of postponements, a ton of postponements. So it stinks, but it is what it is, and you got to make do. And like you said, you're seeing coaches kind of, come out and say, hey, we'll take whatever we can get. So it's definitely an interesting time right now.
I know college football bowl games have had some problems. with cancellations. Also, I think UCLA pulled out like the day before. Unfortunately, the Barstool Arizona Bowl has been canceled. I think Central Michigan is playing somebody else, but Boise State had to pull out of that. I mean, there's just been a lot of bowl games that have been canceled, just like college basketball games. But two games that we know will not be canceled are the college football playoff
Not gonna
games.
win anyway.
Well, they're going to play them. They're going to play them
Yeah.
at some point. Let's just say that. There's a lot of money that college football has in this. We got Georgia, Michigan, Alabama, Cincinnati. Um, I hate to be this way. I think it's going to be chalk. I think it's going to go Georgia, Alabama, unfortunately.
I have flopped on one of my picks, but I'm still thinking Alabama's going to blow their doors off. But I think Michigan might beat Georgia. I don't know why.
I would love that. I would love that. I would love for there to at
why.
least be one non-SEC team in the final game.
I don't personally think that Iowa's very good, but like Michigan absolutely dismantled Iowa. And they're riding hot, man. Their only loss was very early in the season. It's not a great loss. I mean, Michigan State had a good year. Let's not, it's not the end of the world. But I don't know. There's just something about this game that Georgia's offense is not great either, and it's going to be one of those. I think this might be. I'm very conflicted, but I think somehow Michigan's going to pull it off.
It's just going to be tough for Michigan to score touchdowns.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand they didn't play well against Alabama, which is Alabama, but that defense is still very good.
Yeah, they're tough. There's something in my gut that just tells me Michigan, and I can't exactly explain why. But
in a perfect world, Boomy, you would have Michigan, Cincinnati in the last game.
That would be nice. They should do a third place game. I would like to see that.
That'd be and just in the last game. If that was if they somehow both get the upset, that would just be the best, because that's what I want to see.
No, definitely. If you can get not chalk, I mean, I think everybody roots for an underdog. It's one of those things. But I just have this gut feeling may have put a future in on Alabama to win the national title. So I think they're going to blow their doors off. But there's Nick Saban with a month to prepare is just a different animal.
You've made worse bets, Booby.
I have made a lot of worse bets. I made 4 today that were very bad. But Matt, I know you've talked about Sauce Gardner before. I saw a stat that he has played 1,096 snaps at Cincinnati in man-to-man coverage, and he's yet to give up a touchdown.
Guy's ridiculous. He's going to be
that is insane.
And
he's going to be a top 5 pick.
I know every time I talk about Cincinnati, I get yelled at, so I'm just going to keep it quick. But
I like that. That was fun.
The only thing with Gardner is they do have Mechie's out, so it's basically Jamison Williams from the Alabama aerial attack perspective. So you have to assume Gardner's going to probably line up anywhere that Jamison Williams goes. You're going to see Gardner on him, and I do think that Cincinnati matches up well. The other thing is Alabama only blew out fucking Georgia. And I know that sounds like a ridiculous statement because Georgia was undefeated, the number 1 team in the nation at the time. But they looked like shit in a lot of games. And people forget that
they almost lost to Auburn.
This is not the same Alabama team that's been there every year. I know they looked like it in their last game against Georgia. I think they're in fucking Kirby Smart's dome. I think Nick Saban owns Kirby Smart like you wouldn't believe, and knows inside and out how to get to him, how to attack him, how to beat him, how to smother him. And I think he preys on that. I don't think this is necessarily an Alabama team is so much greater than everybody like they normally are from a talent perspective, because usually the talent gap for Alabama is just overwhelming. I don't think that's what's there this year. So in a freshman quarterback versus a senior quarterback like Cincinnati brings, you brought up all the games that Gardner plays. Let's look at all the games Desmond Ritter's played, and he's played bowl games. He's played impactful games down the stretch to try to preserve these perfect seasons that they've had. I just think they present a little bit different of an opponent for Alabama that they've normally faced in these situations.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, you do make a good point. They should have lost that game to Florida, whose coach got fired before the end of the season.
They should have lost to Auburn.
They should have lost to Auburn. Absolutely.
Should have lost to Auburn. Then they didn't play very well against LSU, who's a very average
Texas
football
A&M.
team this year.
Yeah.
They lost. I mean, and then they only beat Arkansas, who's a very average football team. They only beat them by 7, and like you said, they should have lost.
All I'm going to say is
Auburn.
the number 5 team in the nation lost one game, and it was at home, and it was Notre Dame lost to Cincinnati at home. It's not acting.
You can almost say the same thing about Georgia too. I mean, they didn't play a lot of very good teams. Their biggest
win was Clemson.
So
Clemson
I think
good. Clemson
maybe
was good, but Clemson wasn't Clemson.
Absolutely.
We have a chance of seeing the game that everyone wants to see.
It's one of those weird years where the top end teams don't have like this tremendous talent disparity between the other two teams, and it's like Ohio State and Alabama every year have like this talent gap over the next two teams in the playoff, or Alabama and Clemson, whichever way it shakes out a given year. I don't think 1 and 2 this year are so much more talented from just a football talent perspective than 3 and 4 this year. Yes. It'll be interesting. I don't know. It should be 2 really good games. I think from a betting perspective, I'm going to take both dogs, gambling wise. I do think. If I had to pick like a money line situation, I'd go Bama and Georgia. I think it'll be interesting to see what Georgia does at quarterback. If they play their best quarterback, I think they can win the national title. If they don't play JT Daniels, I don't think they're beating Bama in a championship anyway. So we'll see.
I just really hope that we get 2 good games on Christmas Eve.
Couldn't agree more. Could not agree more.
But Boomy, you got a wacky web story for us to end the show.
Of course I do.
Wait a second. I hope everyone saw the clip I put out of Boomy forgetting his wacky web story on Christmas
Eve.
Still
your fault. Still your fault for not putting it on the show notes.
Oh my gosh.
It's 3 years later and it's still your fault. But anyway, have you guys heard of the term plausible deniability when it comes to like law? Okay, everybody's heard of that term. And make sure that if you're going to use that, that whatever it is that you're in question for is not taped to your genitals. A Florida man, of course, Florida, was found with cocaine and methamphetamines wrapped around his member and then tried to deny that they were his drugs. I'm not sure how you try to wiggle your way out of that one.
Someone left their drugs there.
I mean,
someone left their drugs.
People have been it for years. That's like I think that's tried and true method apparently, but apparently not for this guy.
I'm guessing he didn't get away with it.
Yeah, no, he's in prison. No, he's definitely going to jail. He was stopped for driving without his headlights on at 4:00 in the morning. When the driver was arrested, they charged him with DUI and marijuana possession. They also found a gun under his passenger seat.
Yikes.
But the man, very, 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 very was convinced that they were not his drugs. But like I said, if you're ever going to try and deny something, make sure that it is not taped to your private parts, because that's probably a dead giveaway.
It's a tough one to get yourself out of.
Yeah, I don't even know if the best lawyer in the country can get you out of that one.
Yeah, that's gonna be a tough situation.
Yeah, idiot. But typical Florida man, right?
Try to plead down is your best bet.
Imagine somebody standing there and going, that's not mine.
I'm gonna also assume this isn't his first offense either.
I would think that's probably a safe assumption there, Maddie. You don't go from no crime to taping cocaine and meth to your private.
Just gonna go out on a little bit of a limb there.
Yeah, that's a tough one. And then a gun under the passenger seat. Yikes.
Not good. Well, thank you for joining us here on the TCF Morning Show Thursday, December 30th. Thank you to Boomy at Boomy TCF and Maddie at schools_01. I am Zach Lilia at ZLilia TCF. The main page is at typical_Chicago. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Typical Chicago Fans. Go over to the YouTube, type in Typical Chicago Fans, and subscribe to the YouTube page. Morning shows, podcasts, interviews, food reviews, all on there. Then wherever you get your podcast from, just type in Typical Chicago Fans. We will be on there. If it is Apple, please subscribe, rate, and review. If it's anywhere else, like I said, just type in Typical Chicago Fans, and you will find us on there. Shout out to Connect Roasters. go to connectroasters.com. Boomy's got the shirt on there. If you want a shirt like that, if you want some coffee, if you want a coffee mug, if you want coffee stuff, go to connectroasters.com. And they have everything that you will need for coffee. They also got cool merch over there. And follow them on all social medias. Shout out to Connect Roasters. We love them. Anything else, boys?
I know we didn't say that we liked New Year's Eve that much, but if you're going to go out, please be safe. Call someone for a ride. Get an Uber. Don't be a fool and enjoy responsibly. But stay away from the car if you've been partaking in New Year's Eve.
Very true, Boomy.
Yep.
Well, thank you. Thank you for joining us here on the TCF Morning Show. It has been Thursday, December 30th. We love you all.
Peace.